Hello, welcome to another session of Behavior Intelligence Live. My name is Nagi Behelik. I should have my title on the screen, shouldn't I? There we go. Technology. All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome. I hope you'll enjoy our session today. It's very exciting. Um, the the fourth of a series of sessions regarding scaling, burnout, making decisions, growing a business, putting a team together. We'll have more of these, obviously, as time goes on. But today is one that I decided to really focus on the core related to that, and I'm also very excited today. We're going to announce something new. So stand by. But if you are watching right now, please give me a thumbs up in the chat or say hello. Tell me where you're from. We just want to make sure that everything is working smoothly. All right. So I'll watch for that as usual. And without further ado, let's get going. Won't keep you in suspense. We'll dive into the new announcement, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later on as well. I am launching yet another book, and there's going to be a series of these this year, I hope. Behavior Intelligence Cookbook. So the idea is I've put together 400 ready to use. It's over 400 behavior intelligence tips and tricks that you can apply, whether in your life, in your business, as a leader, as a coach, etc. So this is very exciting. If you're interested, I will later on give you an opportunity to access the early release, early launch. We want to get people's feedback on how they're going to use it. We want to perfect it, not too much perfection, obviously, but we want to get it out the door as soon as possible. So appreciate your interest. The concept, just to give you a quick glimpse, if you open the book, there'll be lots of topics in the book. Let me turn that off so we can see that. Okay. And you can read the book from cover to cover, or the idea is it's a quick reference book. You have a situation, you want to find out about it, you just jump in here, and if you go into the search, I've just put misunderstanding in there as one. You can just look through these, grab one that is most relevant to you, and open that. And basically, what you get is a context, some of the information about the impact it would have, how it would show up, and some tips on how to use it, right? If we search for, what's our topic today? Overwhelm. I think I had that up here before. If you click that, you can, again, the same thing, look at how to use that in your different situations, right? So lots of tips, lots of easy to use, really. Just how does that show up? How would it impact you? What's the context? It gives you an idea, and it gives you some tips on what to do and how to practice getting out of that situation or working with someone in that situation. Okay, so that's ready to launch, but we're looking for some early adopters that want to participate in giving us feedback before we go public with that. There is more related to that. There are other plans. There will be an app. There will be other things. do get on to that and put your hand up if you're interested. Okay, so today's topic, as I said, I've taken the scaling out of the topic a little bit and I've focused on the core fundamental that is behind being able to scale your business. And it's really the overwhelm, burnout, losing control, all of those kinds of things that we see occurring when people get into that situation. Okay. And to jump right into that, let me get my clicker. Let's see if it's going to work. Maybe not. Let's click up here. There we go. All right, so back to slide 2. So our goal today is to look at these struggles, these time challenges. They're usually time related, but they're actually to do with how we manage ourselves with the time available. And this is where the overwhelm and burnout, and that's what we will talk about today. A reminder for people, next month we'll be diving into the Behavior Intelligence Network, our community portal. We're excited to work with all the professionals, the coaches, business owners and experts to really dive into many of these topics that I'm covering here today, but getting into it with smaller communities, smaller groups to do that. We'll get into the label busting. We'll dive into some more of these topics that are in the book. There's going to be courses and all kinds of materials. So lots of announcements, lots of things happening. What's the phrase? Moss doesn't grow under our feet. We're constantly moving and evolving and growing. If you're either growing or you're dying, right? So you need to constantly learn, grow, develop in order to continue to evolve and stay up to date with what's happening. The burnout trap that we see within a lot of small businesses, coaches, small businesses, but this translates also into many other organizations. I always remind people, even in a large corporation, every team and team leader is really like a small business, okay? And if you think that way, you can take all of the information that we are talking about and transfer it to the areas that are relevant to you. The struggle is really the stress that comes from overwhelm. Overwhelm is one of those labels, and in label busting, we want to go and dive into what is overwhelm. I can observe somebody and I can say, oh, they seem to be overwhelmed. They look stressed. Or I can look at myself and have a similar observation of self about what I'm doing, how I'm dealing with scaling, growing, handling many things, etc. So that overwhelm needs to be unpacked to the specific context that is relevant to you or to the person that you are working with. So keep that in mind, and that's really the importance of behavior intelligence. We're really talking about getting away from mind reading, projecting, and explaining the observable behavior in order to help somebody or help yourself understand what thinking needs to change, what thinking created that behavior. How can I learn a different behavior to achieve my objective? So, when we talk about the overwhelm, burnout, losing control, uncertainty, all of these things really come down to not so much about the hours that you work or the volume that you try to do within the hours. It's about the energy and clarity of how you use your time. Okay, that's an important point right there. So, how you use your time is related to the clarity and the discipline and the structure that you have in place so that you leverage your energy with laser focus application. Okay, so that's a important distinction of where we shift to how behavior patterns can amplify stress. So, for example, if I get very emotional in a particular situation, that's going to amplify my stress. If I logically go into the pros and cons and prioritize things, then I de-amplify or reduce that stress level that is associated with that. So my thinking and behavior, how I act, because the thought might be fantastic, but how we act triggers the world to respond back to the mirror or talking to somebody. Your actions will either amplify or reduce the stress. Typical symptoms, we're trying to get to the core of this, which is, the busyness, always seem to be juggling many things, responding to demand rather than being in control. And we talked about that last time in decision making. We find that we, as humans, we prefer not to be put in a situation where we have to be proactive, we have to think of what I need to do next. We prefer if somebody calls us, we can answer that, and we prefer to be responding rather than managing time. And that creates and amplifies the overwhelm, right? If you like, responding is the behavior that is associated with demand. And the more you respond to demand, the more you lose control and the more you might feel overwhelmed and rarely moving forward, right? So progress doesn't happen by the responsiveness. Progress happens through being proactive, planning, executing, having clarity to achieve your goals and intentions. Okay. Guilt, over taking time off. I know I've been there myself. I sometimes use the excuse I love my work, but in reality, I am constantly concerned about falling behind. Taking time off might cause me to not hit my targets and things like that. So we need to really think about our action in relation to the thinking that can change that. So if I go for a walk or a bike ride or whatever and deliberately do that, then I'm really acknowledging the behavior that is helping me to reduce the stress. If I don't do that, I will burn out, right? So those things are important. People try to multitask. You can't multitask. It's too disruptive. Every time you switch task while you're in the middle of another one, you are going to lose focus. You need to take time to refocus when you get back to that task. The brain just can't do that with accurate, focused attention, deliberate deliverability, and success. So keep in mind that multitasking is far less effective than single tasking, getting things done. And there's a neurological reason for that also. It's to do with the dopamine that is triggered when you finish something. So getting those things finished, done, is very important to being energized and having clarity. When you take something off your plate because it's done, you allow yourself room in your head to deal with the remaining things. But when you have so many things in your head, that is also stress and overwhelm. So clarity comes from, taking one thing at a time and completing it. Pick just one thing for today. Okay. I think I just talked a little bit about this, the loss of focus, the emotion that then gets triggered, the anxiety that comes from stress. A lot of people find it useful to just go back to the old school pen and paper, write things down. There's something to do with that physiology. We use whiteboards, we use all kinds of tools, flip charts to keep our energy level through the kinesthetic engagement between brain, whiteboard, etc. Yes, you can type and put it on a screen. I find it less effective than the energy associated with standing up and actually doing it. Okay. The world, we engage with the world through our body, and it's reduced significantly when it's just a keyboard and a screen. Okay, get up, walk around, pace if you have to. All of these things are really useful to help with clarity. So, questions. All right. If it's not time, it's behavior, then your time drain is coming from one of these areas. Which one is you, right? Or is it all three? Are you overcommitting? Saying yes when you should be saying no to something. This is the responding to the world. If you keep saying yes to everything, that pile is going to keep growing, and the stuff that you need to do that's really important for you to move forward is getting neglected. Okay, so the time drain, it's not about time or not having enough time, it's about how effective you are with your time. Avoidance and procrastination, these are labels that we see get thrown around. We need to understand what is the reason behind those. What is the behavior that is going on? Is it really avoidance and procrastination, or is it research? Okay. And if it's research, we talked about that last week. Let's time a box. Let's put a time limit on how much research, how long you go in that path before you say, enough is enough. I've got what I need to be able to make a decision and go and make a decision. We talked about that last week. Perfectionism is very similar, and the question is always, when is enough good enough? Often we are trying to predict so much about how something is going to be used, how it's going to be applied. Even the book today. So we're launching this book. I don't know how people are going to use it. I know how I would use it, how I recommend people use it, but through a soft launch and getting feedback, I'm putting it out there without it being perfected yet, because perfection is never going to guarantee how the world is actually going to apply it, use it, implement it, and so forth. So we're constantly going to be evolving that and improving and tweaking and adding more. That's why I said there'll be other books down the road, right? These are behavior-based, they're not time-based, right? It's about your behavior with the time available. Okay. Now, when we talk about behavior, we often don't think of it in terms of programmed patterns. What I mean by that is, if you haven't heard me talk about programming your brain, you've been programmed through your life up until now. Everything that you do automatically, unconsciously, that we call habits, that show up in response to repeated situations. You do it without thinking, brushing your teeth, driving a car sometimes. All of these things are really patterns. And when a pattern's not serving you well, there's no sense just labeling it or fretting over it or becoming stressed about it. It's more important to first begin by identifying what is going on, the pattern. All right. And um, when I'm preparing for a presentation, my pattern is I am focused. I can't handle interrupts. I don't want to handle interrupts. I want to stay in the zone. So that's the pattern that shows up in preparation for a presentation. Now, in order to unpack that, I need to go and look at my AccuMatch map and see the areas within the map, and I'll touch on that later on, that are the unconscious patterns that are going on that I'm not aware of. And even as I'm explaining it now, I need to go and take a look actually at my map, right? I should have it memorized. I have a lot of it memorized, but I still need to have that visual confirmation from a tangible result that says, okay, I'm doing this, right? I am running the global vision, future focus around how I am preparing for the presentation, how it's going to be received. So first, recognize your pattern, right? It gives you the leverage to then look at that pattern and apply it to what and how you are using the time available to you. Are you being effective? Is a pattern that's high need to be reduced in order to execute? So if I'm writing the book, there's really a need for me to suppress my planning, my global thinking, my visionary, and get down to the brass tacks of actually getting the procedure, the systems, the detail, diving into areas that I'm usually avoiding. I maybe not so much uncomfortable with them, but they need energy and clarity for me to execute those. And I can't give them the energy and clarity if I am following all kinds of opportunities and ideas and concepts. I need to say, stop, I'm doing this one today. So understanding your pattern, just as I explain my own patterns, you need to understand your patterns. Okay. This is about filtering those and acting strategically and applying what needs to be applied where it needs to be applied. Even if it's something you're not comfortable with, you can still do it. You just need that clarity and focus. Okay. So, questions that you might want to ask yourself. Now, the book will help you to do that because of all the practical scenarios or actions that you can take. And you don't need to just follow them willy-nilly. The way I would use that is, there are lots of topics, as you saw, that relate to overwhelm or misunderstanding. I'm going to go through a few of those and take nuggets from each one. They might cause me to search for a second thing like conflict. So if there's misunderstanding, I'll get that. I might jump into conflict, get that. I'll make 2 to 3 action items max out of all of the content that I pull out of the book. So that becomes part of it. Sorry, I kind of digressed on the slide a little bit, but you get what I mean. The idea is, are you just reacting, or are you in control? Are you taking control? Are you fearing uncertainty? That's just really the flip side of the same coin, that you need to control something. And the only things you can control are the things that you do and that you can impact and see feedback from. All the other stuff is unlikely for you to be able to control it unless you are in that role. A politician, has control over the impact on the country. But if you're not a politician, then you don't have that control. You only have the ability to work within the framework that's available to you. This is fresh in our mind with elections coming up. Do I look for sameness or difference? This is a program pattern that a lot of people are not aware of. When you look at a situation, some people see everything that's changed or things that need changing, while others see what is relatively the same, and how keeping things the same helps them to be more comfortable. So some people are comfortable with the opportunity to change things, and some people are less comfortable with that, and some people can do both, right? And again, it comes back to which are you going to do within the time available to you, right? If you have a limited time, then changing a lot of things is not going to be useful. You might want to pick something and stick with it, get it done, right? Are you the type of person that is moving away from the fear of failure, the consequences, or are you a type of person that is excited about the opportunity, moving forward towards your ambition, your objective, your outcome, etc.? Both get you to an outcome. It just one is by moving away and the other one's by moving towards, and you can use both, because the brain, it doesn't understand that I don't have this trait. The brain only knows that it's been conditioned over time through rewards or through consequences, that this is the pattern that it runs. Okay, so you can put any pattern in your head, and that's really important to remember that. So we touched on the map, and this is a good example of a section of the map. I'm not even sure which one that is. I think, yes, it's the towards and away, and sameness and difference, consensus, etc. But if we focus on the middle area, it's very easy to see that this person is programmed to prefer sameness, and they'll work with consequences and opportunity. So towards and away. So we need to use both when we are talking to someone in a situation that's dealing with the overwhelm and burnout, which is our topic today. And the way that would pan out, and the book will help you with that, you can then take a look at, okay, what can I keep the same, so that if I tweak it and just focus on doing this thing, I'm not going to fall back into that past situation, and I'll be able to move slowly towards my goal, right? So you can see how the story, the language, just by looking at those 4 points on the map, allows you to then take control of how you will act to be more effective without losing control and burning out and becoming overwhelmed, right? So recognizing sameness, some consequence, and towards just a little bit of each allows me to say, okay, keep it simple, tweak it a little bit. Don't try to change too much because that is not going to work for the way I'm programmed. Okay. However, in COVID, we had a lot of people that are like this and they couldn't pivot. So the training, which takes a little bit longer, was to say, okay, I understand that you tend to prefer to keep things pretty steady, the same, stable, but you're in a situation where the consequence of that is you're not going to get to your goal. You're going to lose that opportunity. You really need to try and pick one thing that you can change. And that's how we train them to then start introducing change and shifting from the sameness and difference to elevate the difference a little bit. Okay. Exciting stuff, right? Without diving into it too much, obviously there's lots of courses and things that we do with coaches and leaders, and that's why the book became really relevant as a catalyst for people to be able to get what they need quickly. Okay. Delegation isn't a skill, it's a pattern. Okay. Yes, some people can say it's a skill, but really it's the practice of the pattern. It's not about the how you do it, it's about doing it. Okay. Okay. So if you have a pattern of fear of delegating, you resist it because you might lose control, or nobody can do it as good as you. These are the patterns that are getting in the way of the delegation. And when you recognize those patterns and you pull those patterns up and look at them and go, no, I'm going to take the initiative to change my pattern, okay, to take a deep breath, allow other people to grow and learn. You weren't born with the knowledge you have today. And so anyone else, given the opportunity and the support and the mentoring, can learn those things. So invest that and change your pattern. People can do amazing things if you give them a chance. Okay. So it's a pattern that you need to work on. So bottom line is really what we're talking about is taking a look at which habits are limiting habits and being deliberate. Smarter is a bit of a stretch, but being deliberate about the new habits that you want to develop that serve you well. Okay. So, focus sprints, a bit of a buzzword, but basically what it means is you pick one thing and you time box it. You say we're going to only spend this much time on it. We're going to go from here to here as fast as we can. Let's see how far we get and what we can achieve. We don't know if we're going to get to a completed result, but we're going to do it in short sprints like that. Habit stacking and environmental triggers, understanding that certain things stack on top of each other, but you've also got to take the environment into consideration when you are really diving into that. Some situations are not going to allow you to automatically change a habit. All right. So you need to take that into consideration, the culture, your organization, your team, maybe your family, other responsibilities play into that. So you can't, it needs to be ecologically sound, I say to people. So make sure you also test some of those changes or tweaks, improvements that you want to make. And maybe I'll turn that off so we can read these slides. Okay, so when we look at some of the examples and case studies that we've done, and these are all, we've seen thousands of these now over the last decade and a half actually, of different patterns, different behaviors, maps, etc. And this is an easy one, a good one as an example, and that is what I've been talking about is preferring to be reactive, waiting for the phone to ring or waiting for somebody to ask you a question. And that's great if you're in a support role, but if you're in a support role and there's nothing happening, it's not busy time, it's a quiet time, what are you going to do with that? You're just going to sit there and waste that time. This is where being proactive comes in and being able to identify those patterns and quickly take advantage of that, and managing maybe the volume of calls, the volume of emails, allocating time to deal with those, allocating your breaks, your time to basically get clarity and focus, right? I use this to explain it. It actually de-stresses, right? So when you take a short walk or take a coffee break or whatever it is that you do, you have an opportunity to use that time to apply a pattern of getting clarity and focus. What do I need to do next? What's really the next most important thing that I need to do right now when I get back to my desk, right? And you need to do that often enough throughout the day so that you don't get to the end of the day and go, oh, day's gone again. I didn't achieve the things that I needed to achieve. You're just running the pattern you've always run. Okay, and what you need to do is really be proactive, shift that, take control, put patterns in place in your day that are deliberate, that are intended to help you build new habits. It's through repetition that you will develop those. And the easiest place to start is just pick that one point on the map. There's 49 different points. We're not asking anyone to boil the ocean here and try and fix everything that could possibly be wrong with you. We just ask you to pick the one thing that you can start with. If there is 12 months in a year and you just did one thing for 1 month, you would establish a new pattern for that. That's 12 things that you can achieve in a year in your lifetime. That's tremendous, right? If you think of a year as an opportunity for you to evolve and grow to the next level, become a better person, a better whatever it is you want to be, a better parent, a better husband, wife, whatever, if you just pick one thing and dedicate that improvement in developing a new habit, that's 12 in a year. Okay, so keep it simple. You don't need to boil the ocean, as I said. Okay, so try this. Pick something that you want to focus on. Okay, set some boundaries on it. It doesn't need to be huge. It doesn't need to be complicated. You need to try and keep it as simple as possible and set an objective, a start and an endpoint. This is where I am at today. This is the pattern I'm running all the time. I'm going to start by once a day doing this in the first week. Then in the second week, twice a day, I'm going to do this. In the third week, it's going to be 3 times a day. By the fourth week, you've now built a good new habit that's going to move you forward, right? And track that. Use paper, use whatever tool. Whiteboards are great because they're visual. They're in front of you all the time. Every time you walk past it, you add something to it. This is the dopamine that you're giving yourself to say, this is my reward, right? I've done that. I've done this, right? So these are really important things to keep in mind. Okay. So I've talked enough. I hope you've got enough information. I wanted to just leave you quickly before I start wrapping up here with a thought about what's coming in the next month. We'll dive into our community portal. We'll talk about all of the tools and systems that you'll get access to by joining us in the community and being a part of that. Maybe I can put that up on the screen. Excuse the top of my head. If you're interested in being a part of that, do reach out to me. And it's just nagi@biqorg.com. And I'll be more than happy to help you with that. So that's it. Final thoughts while I'm looking for any questions. So to shift your behavior, think about what you're doing with your time rather than thinking about there isn't enough time. Actually, there is a lot of time. You just need to know what to do with that time. I've given you some examples. And really getting to the point that we started from, which is your ability to scale without burnout. This is what it's about. Pick 1 year. That's all you need. And then talk about the scaling that you need to do. And if you are trying to do all 12 things at once, you're gonna feel overwhelmed, stressed, burnt out. But if you just get one thing done per month, some people can get things done a lot quicker. I'm just saying, take it easy, right? That's a lot of accomplishment. Reward yourself. Okay. Again, thank you for your time. Hope you've enjoyed this. Again, if you're interested in the coming book launch and want to get a preview of that, do reach out to me, and I'll be able to walk you through our expectations from being part of that program and the opportunity to get access to this as an early bird, early adopter. All right. So again, thank you and have an amazing rest of your day. I hope to see you next time.